Today, Los Angeles took a monumental step to create the first municipal bank in the nation. As one of the world's economic world powers, this is a groundbreaking move for Los Angeles to create a city-owned bank accountable to Los Angeles, mandated to serve the people. It is truly a monumental moment. We are redirecting the flow of money away from private interests back into the hands of the people where it belongs. Today, LA City Council's vote, let me take this off. Today, LA City Council's vote authorizes the business plan for the city's public bank. This is the first step in implementing the law we passed at the end of 2019, AB 857, the Public Banking Act, which legalized public banks in California, creating a legal and regulatory framework for cities and counties to form their own banks. In 60 days, the city will release an RFP to hire consultants to write the viability study and the business plan for the LA Bank. And once authorized, this constitutes the city's application to the state for a public bank charter. Now, in cities up and down the state and across the nation, public banking is gaining traction as a real, viable, practical solution for cities to save money while simultaneously being able to address local pressing needs. Right now, when cities want to fund public projects like build roads, bridges, and schools, they turn to private markets for financing. Instead of investing in affordable housing and healthcare and education, cities divert huge portions of their limited budget towards paying back loans with interest. A public bank will cut out Wall Street as a middleman while serving as both a public depository for the city's funds as well as a public lender for the city's borrowing needs. And we know that the interests of Wall Street banks don't align with public interests. With a publicly owned financial institution, with profits redirecting back into our communities, we can build a stronger, more resilient LA, ensuring that everyone benefits from economic growth. That is what we can do by investing here at home in Los Angeles, rather than continuing allowing private for-profit corporate banks to continue to dominate all priorities for how our public funds are used. It's time for local control of our public dollars based on our values. It is time for a public bank of Los Angeles whose sole mission is to serve the people and the public good. This is the future of finance. Thank you. All right. I'm sorry, I am Trinity Tran. I am the co-founder and lead organizer of Public Bank Los Angeles and the California Public Banking Alliance. Thank you. Yeah. Should have started with that. Thank you. And now it's my honor to introduce Councilmember Price, representing Council District 9.
Thank you, Trinity, for your comments and for your leadership. Let's give her a hand, because she with a whole host of supporters, friends, colleagues have really been working hard on this. I'm just so honored to be here with you today. Honored to be joined by my colleague on the council, Nithya Rahman, my seatmate. She was a very strong second to this motion this morning, and so we just always appreciate her leadership. And of course, it would not have happened without a number of organizations that have stepped up to the plate consistently. Public Bank LA, UFCW, Inclusive Action, ACE, just amongst a handful of organizations. So let's give them a hand, because they have been unwavering and making sure that this issue keeps coming up in a way that's so compelling for us to consider. And let me just give a shout out to my former colleague, the Honorable Herb Wesson, who initially authored this motion, who brought it to council a couple of years ago. He really got the ball rolling. And of course, our colleague from the legislature, Assemblymember Miguel Santiago, who has been the father of this measure at the state level. Let's give him another hand. And again, his leadership has provided a framework that permits municipalities to move forward. And you'll be hearing a little bit more about what's occurred at the state level on this in a minute. But let me just say that the opportunity to form a public bank in LA is extremely important, especially as we begin to recover from this COVID-19 pandemic. Over the course of the last 18 months, COVID-19 has exposed shortcomings in many of our current systems today, and that certainly includes the banking sector. In my district, CD9, numerous businesses and constituents continue to struggle to make ends meet, and they have been hit hardest during this global pandemic. And while there are many financial assistance programs and services, many in my district, again, struggle to access these resources because of the various barriers imposed by traditional financial institutions. With the public bank, these individuals and businesses would have had the opportunity to take out loans at a lower interest, which would have made the difference in how they weathered through the storm, right? Interest matters. So I'm a big supporter of public banks because they pave the way for individuals who are unbanked and who are underbanked. And Tran, as you know, we consider that to be a figure of almost 10% in the city of Los Angeles. Having access to lines of credit as well as checking and savings accounts is instrumental in an individual's ability to achieve financial stability. And as I said, here in LA, nearly 10% of the residents are unbanked or underbanked. So again, having access, and that rate, incidentally, is almost double the national average, right? 10% here in LA, that's double of what we're seeing across this country. But having access to a bank that's going to allow individuals to do many of the things that we just take for granted, such as a savings for a home or becoming an entrepreneur or just building generational wealth. Finally, having a public bank, as Tran eloquently indicated, is going to help our city lay a foundation for economic development, for job creation, and for financing affordable housing. Hey, what a concept. The city can finance that. By having a public bank fund infrastructure projects, LA is going to be able to cut costs significantly, as we will no longer have to rely on major financial institutions who do what? They prioritize profit over people. We got to change that paradigm. And for these reasons and many others, I'm excited to see the possibility of a public bank moving forward here in the city of LA. Again, giving LA a chance to set the tone, to be a leader, and to be very progressive in how we make sure services are available, especially to those who are least able. So again, this is an important milestone, but it's not the end of the road. It's just a step along the way. But I'm excited to join with my colleagues and our friends from the community who support the idea of a public bank. Let's move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. And it's always my honor to introduce our next speaker, Councilmember Nithya Rahman, representing Council District 4.
Hi, everyone. Hi. I want to thank you all for having me today because I'm the newest member of this crew. You all have been working at this for such a long time. And even in the less than a year that I've been in office, what I have seen this coalition do is really remarkable. They have taken a very wonky concept, something that is not easy to understand, something that is not easy to articulate its benefits for everyday working Angelenos, and have turned that into regular calls to city council, into calls for action to elected representatives to move steps forward from ideas into laws. And they haven't just done it here in the city of Los Angeles, they've also done it at the state level, at the state of California. And I just want to give this coalition a huge round of applause for that. I also want to thank Councilmember Price and Assemblymember Santiago for inviting me to be here because they have been working on this for a very long time. And I'm particularly excited to be celebrating today after this week's signing of AB 1177 into law, which is an incredible achievement. I think you have heard and you will hear about the benefits that public banking can bring for Angelenos. What I want to say is that, we have here standing together groups that work with some of the most vulnerable communities in Los Angeles, some of those who are in the unbanked population, the underbanked population, and also let me add to that, the people who are cheated by their banks, which is also a huge part of this population. We have here also climate organizers, and I think this is really important because we saw in this pandemic an opportunity that was missed. If we had had a public bank available, this city would have been able to respond to the crisis that individuals were facing with much more flexibility, with much more ability to address everyday people's needs. And what the climate crisis is bringing to Los Angeles is very likely many more moments of need. And the public bank sets us up for that future, not just to combat climate change with important investments in our city's infrastructure, but also to enable us to be able to respond to climate crisis by protecting those individuals who are poised to be at the front lines of the harms that will result from it. So I want to thank, once again, everyone in this group for fighting the fight that they have, and to say that I'm deeply honored to stand with them, to continue to push, and to continue to make this into a reality here in the city of Los Angeles. Thank you.
And now our next speaker is our rockstar public banking author of both AB 857 and AB 1177, which Governor Newsom just signed into law yesterday. Assemblymember Miguel Santiago, representing Assembly District 53.
Well, I want to first thank the coalition. I hadn't had a chance to see you folks in a very long time, but I want to thank you. And for folks who are wondering a little bit about this, this was the first public banks bill that went through through any legislative house in the country. And it was 857 by Mr. Chu in San Francisco and I. And it was a pretty simple concept. When you took a look at the Bank of North Dakota and you took a look at investments in community and investments in state infrastructure and its origin in the agricultural industry, we thought that that's something that could be done in the state of California. And it's not too radical of an idea to think for a second that a municipal bank or a state bank can invest in its people and invest in its well-being instead of historic profits like we've now seen with Wall Street banks. It wasn't a radical idea to think that a local municipality or a state can create a public bank for a public good. And that's exactly what we wrote into the law. And that was 857. What was also historic about the bill is it's the only bill in the state legislature to have ever gone through any house in any state throughout the country, but also who had mounted back-to-back Wall Street lobbyists up and down the halls and was beaten back by a coalition of grassroots activism and leadership, where we had over 200 organizations that fought extremely hard without a single paid lobbyist. And we won because we had the better arguments. Now, it's a thank you. And we've heard all across the country talk about a Green New Deal. And part of that is having a public bank. And the ability for municipalities, 10 of them in the state of California, the way it's written in the bill, 2 a year to set up public banks across the state of California will really help us to drive that fight against climate change that we're starting to see happening up and down the country, and also here in our state. Yesterday alone, we had historic thunders, and a time and era where we probably would not have seen it. We have wildfires, we have climate change happening at a rapid pace where we've never seen it. But the bottom line is this, and it's a serious policy proposal when you take a look at it. The first step is a feasibility study, which Los Angeles has taken and will be at the forefront of this in the country. That feasibility study will allow them to will allow them to do the study that will allow them to proceed forward. In this feasibility study, it will allow them to see whether it pencils out or not, or what changes they need to make for it to pencil out. They'll still have to go to Departments of Business Oversight. It's still FDIC insured. What is going to be different is what they do with that profit. And what's going to be different is what they do with all those excess fees that are now paying Wall Street banks here in our local neighborhoods. From the investment of infrastructure to develop affordable housing, to the investment in parks, to the areas that are poor park, and many other goods that they could do for our local neighborhoods. But here's the bottom line. They'll be able to decide that when they choose a public good, a public benefit, and proceeding forward with a public bank. The city of Los Angeles invests billions and billions of dollars. And right now, Wall Street banks bank those millions and billions of dollars. So the difference is they'll be able to do it themselves, and they'll be able to direct those dollars into improving Angelinos' lives. And that's why we're incredibly excited that you were able to stand up to powered lobbyists, incredible entrenched Wall Street interest, and move forward in the city of Los Angeles with a public bank. And I'll say it in Spanish in 30 seconds. Lo que es importante de lo que hizo la ciudad de Los Ángeles ahora es batallar para tener bancos municipales, para atacar el problema del dinero en exceso que pagamos a bancos corporativos. Y ahora ese dinero, ese invertimiento va a ser aquí para la gente de la ciudad de Los Ángeles. Y eso es histórico, para hacer más viviendas al alcance económico, hacer parques en nuestras comunidades que los necesitan o cualquier otra cosa. Pero lo importante es un invertimiento en el público, simplemente porque hicieron esta acción ahora. So thank you very much for doing that. And I think you're going to see the continuing revolutionizing of how we do banks so that they work for people, not Wall Street invested corporate interest that gets traded on the New York Stock Exchange. Instead, let's measure the ability of a bank by its public good, not how much it makes for investors on Wall Street. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblymember Santiago. I'd now like to introduce Kathy Finn, who is the Secretary Treasurer of the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, UFCW Local 770, who have been instrumental in our fight. We are proud to stand with labor on the LA Public Bank. Welcome, Kathy.
Thank you, Trinity. Good afternoon. Again, my name is Kathy Finn. I'm the Secretary Treasurer of the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, Local 770, and I'm here on behalf of our over 30,000 members, all of whom are essential workers. We're here today to thank Councilmember Price and the Los Angeles City Council for moving to create a public bank for the city of Los Angeles. A public bank represents a new hope for renewal for essential workers. Local 770 strongly supports the creation of any kind of opportunity to help spur growth, recovery, and support for working people. Throughout the pandemic, workers in retail drug, grocery, cannabis, and meat packing, as well as other low-wage essential workers, have been the hardest hit. They have heroically served our communities, literally giving their lives and risking their health as well as the health of their families. They have faced increased workloads, understaffing, lack of childcare, attacks from aggressive anti-maskers, and increased violence in their stores. Many now suffer from PTSD from the long-term stress, anxiety, and depression caused by the pandemic. The failure of major banks to adequately respond to COVID-19 presents a clear case of why a public bank is needed. We must recover from this crisis with a healthy and uplifting social and economic order. A new financial institution that's accountable to the people who keep our city moving and not to Wall Street will invest in our communities, expand lending in areas that support local businesses, create jobs, and respond to pressing local issues. We understand that Los Angeles, as has been mentioned, pays over $1.1 billion per year in interest to private banks who reap record profits year after year. Nearly 50% of the costs of all infrastructure projects goes towards paying interest and fees. That's a lot of money that could be put to better use. Many of our members and other low-wage workers do not have access to banking and spend a chunk of their hard-earned wages on fees at unscrupulous check-cashing agencies or other predatory lenders. A public bank could provide banking access that would allow so many Angelinos to redirect that money to paying rent, buying healthy food, home ownership, and other areas of need. An LA public bank will partner with community banks and create credit unions with responsible lending practices, increasing the availability of credit in areas that Wall Street banks have historically ignored, particularly underserved communities of color. This would further support greater access to healthy food and unionized grocery stores, as well as other services in communities that have not had such access and that have suffered the greatest during this pandemic. So again, thank you for your time, and we thank Councilmember Price and the City Council for moving this forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe Delgado, are you speaking? Oh, Miss Roberts is speaking. Okay, I'm sorry. Next, I'm introducing Miss Roberts, a long-standing ally of public banking from 2018 Measure B to now. Thank you, Miss Roger, with ACE.
Okay. Don't let this white hair fool you.
All right.
I got a lot of fire in me yet, and we're going to get this finished. You hear me? And we're going to do it right. Okay. My name is Beverly Roberts, as I said, and I'm a longtime supporter of the public bank and of ACE. This is what taught me what I know, these kind of things. I've been with them for a long time. But first, let me say something. This lady here, you have to give her a hand because she has been tirelessly doing this, and she's a young person. She never wavered, and she had a tumble. I'm going to tell that. And she's doing fine with it. Look at her. Just a beautiful. So give her a hand. Okay, I also want to thank the Public Bank Coalition for all the hard work to get to this point. And then I forgot about you, Assembly Santiago and Karen Price. But you know I never forget about you, because you're my buddy. Okay. Now where was I? We're establishing a public bank in Los Angeles that will help us to address the need for more housing that is affordable for us and all those other people that we don't know, to help them. That's what this is about. It's not about you, him. It's about them. And me, I didn't live pretty long. And I've lived my life and I've worked hard. And I want to see this done and done right the way it's supposed to be. Got that? Okay. It will help fund preserving affordable units through social housing and efforts. Anytime we avoid the temptation of greedy Wall Street banks and establish a bank of the people, for the people, with the people, and the people, we need to take it. I mean, take it now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roberts. And our last speaker, I'd like to introduce Rudy Espinoza with Inclusive Action for the City.
Hey, everybody. My name is Rudy. I work at an organization called Inclusive Action First. I want to congratulate Assemblymember Santiago and the coalition for the big win yesterday. AB 1177 is a great first step for some statewide policy. And then, of course, Councilmember Price, Councilmember Rahman. We're so lucky to have great leaders in the city that see the opportunity before us. I work at an organization that's a nonprofit lender. We serve and provide low-interest loans to different types of businesses in the city. Barbershops, clothing designers, restaurants, a lot of businesses we've served this year. We're on track to deploy almost $1 million in low interest loans this year with an average loan size of $9,000. And the thing that connects all these businesses together is that all of them have been declined by another institution for a loan. They're all working class people, entrepreneurs that are creating jobs, and they can't access capital to support their businesses and to hire people. And so we've been lucky enough to help them, but frankly, we're overwhelmed. We're overwhelmed and we really need more support. And so I'm super excited to be here with this coalition and with the leaders to support a public institution that puts money into the hands of Angelenos, because that's what we need. We need another tool in the toolbox to support the economic development of our city. Now, one of the big segments of entrepreneurs that we work with are street vendors. Street vendors have a hard time. We see them being criminalized in the news. Sometimes our policies are not up to speed with how we should care for vendors. But vendors are also business owners. And this past year, we surveyed 3,000 street vendors. And 96% of these entrepreneurs said that they had a decline in sales. 60% of them said that they were behind on their rent and their utilities. And guess what? Half of them were seeking a loan from a financial institution that wouldn't see them as a risky bet, that saw them as job creators and saw them as contributors to our communities, and they were all declined. I think that we can do something better here in this city. I'm super excited about the first step today to create an institution that truly serves Angelenos and where the profits go back into this city. So thank you so much, and congrats to the coalition.
And we'll wrap by bringing down Dave Jetty, my colleague with Public Bank LA, who can take any questions that members of the media may have.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dave Jetty, Jette, with Public Bank LA. I can answer any questions about the measure or generally about 1177 public banking widely. Yes. The charter prevents purely commercial enterprises from being founded by the city. AB 857 confirms that a public bank cannot be a purely commercial enterprise, and so we're pretty confident it won't require another ballot measure. Ultimately, the city attorney will make a decision. Yes. This RFP will be released within 60 days, and CLA will want to approve a proposal from a consultant who wants to write the business plan for the Public Bank of LA very quickly. Such a plan will probably take a number of months to complete, including public comment. Do you want to say anything about AB 1177?
Santiago will take the bank telephone.
Yeah. We changed the name to Cal Account, and it's the public banking option for the state of California. And the basic gist of it is, first we go off for market analysis. The market analysis will determine whether what we're saying is right. We believe that it is, but we want to be right, and we want to also see if there's any deficiencies so that we can correct them before we move forward with the Cal Account program. Once that is established, and just for clarity, it would have to go back up to the legislature for one more vote once we've gone through the first series of it. After it's established, the goal of it is to provide banking services, direct retail services, free of cost or any fees. The backside of it, so the public platform, the backside of it would be procured. We did not designate who can and who cannot do the work, so long as there are zero fees, zero penalties, and zero cost to the consumer, and that's what we're after. And the basic gist of it is, when you take a look at the difference between somebody who is wealthy that makes money, those dollars work for people, and they make more money off of it. When you take a look at low-income communities that we are targeting to want to serve, every dollar is gouged, whether it's payday lending, whether it's a bank who we just saw historic overdraft fees done by certain banks during the pandemic, where it was over $3.5 billion worth of fees just by one bank alone. So the idea is to provide this zero-cost service to any consumer who wants it, because again, when somebody of low income makes a dollar, that dollar is gouged at every single corner by every single financial entity. And that will happen now that it's signed. The market analysis goes out. It'll come back to the legislature, and then for implementation statewide. Thank you. Sorry.
Great. Did anyone else have any questions about this measure or about AB 1177? No? All right.
And
Thank
if you
you.
have any further questions, please follow up with on the LA Bank initiative. You can either follow up with Councilmember Price's office or Rahman's office if you have questions regarding AB 1177, the bill that Governor Newsom just signed yesterday. Please follow up with Assemblymember Santiago's office or Public Bank LA. We can answer questions on all fronts. Thank you so much. We appreciate you all.